I think without further ado, I want to welcome our next speaker. We are saving the best for the last. I have to say that, right, Mr. Gray. How are you doing, Gray?
Oh, I'm good. How are you, Jivak?
I am doing great. It's as you know, it's always a wonderful day to spend time with thought leaders and just understand some newer things and try to collect newer I would say nuggets of wisdom. I love doing that. By the way, means everybody knows Ms. Gray is our CEO, our fearless CEO. We work together literally each and every day. So some of these questions might look planted, but they are genuinely, I'm learning a little bit more of everybody when I ask this question. I did not know Ben was also a cartoon and cartoonist as such. So I have to ask you, Gray, what do you do for fun? Let's see whether I can get something else.
For fun. So I have fortunate to have 4 little girls, and they're my fun for 98% of the time. Absolutely. And then when I get a break or with them, big into the outdoors. We love getting outside, camping, hiking. If I get a chance, I'll throw a fly on our lake down the street or on a river. And then as you're going to see, I'm the son of a carpenter. So take a shot at woodworking and home improvement stuff and furniture on the side. So that's what occupies my time. So
that's pretty amazing. I see some amazing artwork on the wall in the back. Can you?
Yeah. You're going to hear more about it, but that is from Catherine Parker, my grandmother. So she was an incredible watercolor artist, and she actually made that for my wife and I on our wedding. So it's actually it's a painting of my first home in Columbus, Ohio, which is a little bit abstract, but it's back there in the background, and we had a flower garden out there. So
that's beautiful to have artists in the family. So maybe my next question should be, not from your family, but who would be one of the favorite artists or a few favorite artists from your perspective?
Favorite artists,
but not from your family. I know your family is full of artists.
Oh no, don't go there, because that's exactly where I'm going. Because I don't know. I mean, honestly, there are so many incredible artists in the world here. I'm going right to where it needs to go. So I'll show you some pictures because
let's go there.
I mentioned, oops. I am fortunate to have beautiful artists around me all the time. And I'm going to share my screen here. Show you a little bit of their art.
We can see it. Wow.
So this is these are my girls. They're a combination of stuff here from Nora and Raleigh, who influence my life every day. I love everything that they do, and this stuff hangs around our house all the time, obviously. Let me see where I can go. This one, actually, Nora won in her first grade art show with. So this was hanging at the art building, or actually the school distribution building, for almost a year. So super proud of her there. Girls are big into the outdoors and nature, things like that. My daughter Raleigh, whoops, I'll have to flip that around here. Well, I'll have to do it later. And some of their paintings. So these are the influences of my life. Last but not least is my wife, Katie, who is an incredible graphic designer. She made these for our wedding, and she actually has a side business herself doing this for others. So fortunate to have all these influences in my life, and that they are my favorites. So that's where I'm going with it.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Means with such amazing artwork, it's always nice to be inspired and motivated. You're a lucky guy. You are a lucky guy.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's start with your stream of thoughts, and then at the end we'll try to capture some Q&As. But I know we started a little bit late for your time, so feel free to take some extra 5 minutes. Also, no problem.
Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna try to take up all the time so you don't have any more time for questions.
I love that.
We'll let you take a break, Jivak. You've been doing a great job. So we appreciate everything that you're doing. Bring all these insights and people together. All right. So I'm gonna take a shot here on a presentation here on the influences of art and industrial design and engineering calling it the Overlooked Gallery. So we'll see how this goes. Starting with some introductions here. Gray Parker, as you mentioned here, Principal CEO at Sundberg-Ferar. And here to lay out an engineer's take on design and on art, and to maybe give a boost of positivity to your day by sharing my perspective that there are a lot of beautiful things in our lives. Now, full disclaimer here, I'm not a trained artist, but I do appreciate art. And I found that I surround myself with art in my home, in my career, and with the people around me. But honestly, I am in fact a proud mechanical engineering nerd. And yes, these objects have occupied my pockets at one point in time or another, completely fulfilling any stereotype you might be thinking about engineers. I still use a graphing calculator, and I still use calipers regularly. I will admit, however, that my long-standing passion for the mechanical pencil has been replaced by the Sharpie pen. Now, this is a tribute to my experience and osmosis with industrial designers who've helped me realize that any line you put down on paper can be interesting if you give it a chance. So I'm going to start by talking about me as an engineer. My engineeringness was conceived out of several things. First, Legos. This is the best Lego set ever created, known as the Deep Freeze Defender, which will in tribute set the color scheme of my presentation. I do still play with Legos regularly, by the way. My kids have taken after their dad, fortunately. And sometimes I get lucky to get paid to play with Legos, actually. It's a great way to invent and to ideate. We use it all the time here. The next inspiration is, let's see if this is going to go. There we go. The 1980 Ford F-150. So this truck taught me the ins and outs of a Haynes repair manual, the value of greasy fingernails and busted knuckles, and it sparked my love for the sound of a V8 engine and all things mechanical. Now, my next influence took me a while to recognize for myself. As I mentioned, I always loved art, but I never thought of art as a professional inspiration until I surrounded myself with the principles of good design. I'm incredibly fortunate, as I showed you before, to have creative and artistic people in my life. Catherine Parker, who I introduced you to earlier, a lifelong watercolor artist inspired by the collaboration of nature and music. Mary Carol Nelson in the middle there, grandmother on my mother's side, founding member of the Society of Layerists in Multimedia, an artist and a writer influenced by the interconnection between humans and holism. And my mother, Patricia Nelson, a collector of Southwestern art, avid advocate for the art of literature, and a watercolor artist on the side. For the men in my family, on the left, great-grandfather Charles Birchfield, visionary watercolor artist, lots of them in my family, passionate about nature and townscapes, fascinated with the idea of painting sounds and nature. His art has actually been exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, at MoMA, at the Hammer Museum in LA, and last I checked, he had a couple pieces at the DIA in downtown Detroit. Ken Parker in the middle, my grandfather, a trained artist and a graphic designer in the advertising world. At the heyday of the Mad Men era, actually, pipe not shown in that picture. And the one on the right is my father, who's been a self-employed carpenter for nearly 50 years. He applies the principles of the golden rule of architecture to the rooms and the furniture that he creates. He's meticulous to make sure that his creations feel right. And this one stands out from the crowd. I get it from these others. But I'm here to tell you that it shouldn't. My father and all of these influences created good things and realized that creating good things and inventing has to be done with art, with a higher purpose that's beautiful to the eye of the audience. So that's what I'm going to try to do here today. Lay a scene for what is art, at least doing the best I can, and try to disclose what role art plays in our everyday life. We'll use that to talk about developing products and understand why are industrial design, engineering, and art all crucial for designing meaningful things. So what is art? I'm not even going to try to do that for you. I'm not going to make a claim that I can give you a meaningful definition there. So I'm going to let some artists do it, and I'll let you just take a quick moment with these. So for me, there's a theme that comes to the surface. Nature. Perhaps the nature in our environment, definitely spiritual nature, and more fundamentally, human nature. This one is a favorite. It's a bit preachy. It's not my intent here, but think about this for a second. Art is man's nature. Nature is God's art. Perhaps art is our nature. Perhaps art is a little more important than we think in our everyday life. And if it is our nature, how does it manifest itself in our lives and in our things? It's an interesting perspective. So on the subject of things and art, we have to talk about industrial design and about the process of designing good things. I'm going to take a stab at defining industrial design. G-Bach, feel free to check my work. Industrial designers make things beautiful and usable, functional, and they understand that these things need to be made in our factories. They connect objects to their users. Now, in contrast to engineers, I think of this as a right brain, left brain train of thought, right? An engineer is technical, rational, quantitative, versus industrial design, which is going to be emotions. It's understanding and interpreting human nature. Foundations are very different, but actually the end game is the same. Now, on the subject of process, this is the first take from an engineer's approach. Ideate, refine that concept, design the prototype, build it, test, learn, repeat until you get it right, and then launch it. Engineers are good at this, and it will yield success, at least for the functional requirements of that product. But it's not enough. It needs to be in collaboration with ID. And there's a hugely important influence to the ID process, the human-centric approach. This fills the needs of the emotional product goals. For them, for industrial designers, the test, learn, repeat process is design research. It's about the user, discovering user needs up front, understanding what users react to help define a concept, and then validating on the back end. Everything revolves around them. We say this a lot at Sundberg-Ferar. G-Bach might have said it 10 times today already. Stop trying to be all things to all people. Start by being something to someone. So, who is that right someone? How do you know what they want? Humans are fiercely unique. Our curiosities are different. We respond differently to joy and fear. Our passions are diverse, and our behavior is very different from each other. And more often than not, we're not good at talking about ourselves. We can't tell someone else what we want. So what do we do when our users can't tell us what they want? Sidebar for a moment here. I cut my teeth at Honda, designing seats for several Acura products. And one of the core approaches that stuck with me is Genba, the principle of Genba, which translates to go to the spot. This is the simplicity of solving a problem elegantly by experiencing it for yourself. You learn by being there. Now, in my early career, this represented being where the test failure was, watching metal bend or listening to the sound of plastic shredding and figuring out how to fix it, or being on the factory floor and seeing how things are put together to evaluate ergonomics. But for industrial designers, it's the same principle, but going to the spot is about the user. By going to people, we can connect the object to its target behavior and understand its audiences at a higher level. Now, I mentioned audiences plural intentionally because there are many of them. Good designers, ID and engineers will question and recognize all of their needs as they build. But the first one, probably the most obvious one, is the end user. Now, this is going to be who purchases it, who fundamentally uses it, where they use it, what their personality is. In some cases, you have to think a little bit deeper. It could be the homeowner, or excuse me, it could be the plumber, not the homeowner. So a lot of consideration needs to go into who's buying it ultimately in the end. The next, customers. This is the distributor, the wholesaler, the middleman, maybe the tier one. There are different needs here, but just as important. How much does it cost to ship? Does it fit in the aisle of my store? What are the user ratings? How is the product serviced? Different needs again, but important nonetheless. Next, the makers. I'm a firm believer that the factory floor is one of the most valuable places for a designer to go. This is where final cost is controlled, where decisions are made on methods and process and timing. They control capacity. They enable advanced technology and allow you to put them in your product. Hugely important. And finally, crucially, upper management. The CEO or the OEM. Here, the needs start looking at company vision, profit margins, risk tolerance, brand identity. So we have to recognize all of these users and go to the spot through design research to lay our foundation for good design. And what do we do with it? It's a big question. This is where we start talking about industrial design and engineering together. Because our first goal as designers is to translate those needs so that we can do something with them. Now, an engineer is going to translate needs through science in order to define what we call functional specifications. Industrial design is going to use art to define emotional specifications here. Both are translating the right needs for the right users, but from different and equally important perspectives. Now, if we start putting emotional and functional specs across the spectrum of users here, we see good coverage on the left side of the screen here. Consumers and customers, they're going to respond to these emotional functional specs. But there are unmet needs, the needs of business. Now, fundamentally, business needs translate to what we call commercial specs. And both parties play a hugely key role. Both bear the responsibility. Engineers, industrial designers alike need to understand schedule, cost targets, intellectual property, market position. All of these have to come into the equation from both perspectives. Now, when we lay this on the map, we start to see full coverage, and the full picture becomes more distributed. So with these building blocks together, what we start understanding is that good design requires concurrent industrial design and engineering. It's a collaboration of both users, and both lenses are needed to bring the solution in focus. But besides that fact, the boundaries are blurred anyway. Engineering can be beautiful. There's beauty in efficient and strong shapes. There's beauty in an elegant mechanism and in the sound of a V8 engine. And industrial design can be functional. Shapes that follow function are compelling. Not every product needs swooping organic surfacing. They just need to be true to their users and to their function. I think this sums it up perfectly. Art without engineering is dreaming. Engineering without art is calculating. So it becomes obvious that engineers and industrial designers are both essential to creating. Now, I'd like to explain this a bit further through a deep dive into a specific project. This is Obi. Obi is a robotic feeding device. I'm going to turn him on back here. Who performs a simple task, really, eating. But for those with limited mobility in their upper body, it becomes a moment of vulnerability, perhaps embarrassment, self-doubt. Obi tackled this human problem with a robotics system that gives back a sense of independence. They endured to answer, how can a spoon provide independence to those who need it most? To do this, we spoke with the users, all of them, through design research, and we translated into functional specs, emotional specs, and commercial specs. So functional, durable, food safe, waterproof, able to survive a table drop. Emotional specs, friendly, obedient, charismatic, and human-natured. And then business specs. This was a startup group. They had to start with low volumes, but be scalable later. Keep the capital costs down, make them poised to expand into other markets in the future. Now, in the end, we were proud to have known that we got it right by looking at the faces of the end users that we gave this to. We worked hard for it. We held true to those specs. And this is what good design looks like. An object tuned to the feelings and functional needs of its user. And ultimately, this is the path to success. The end consumer was happy, as you can see, but so were the manufacturers getting orders for parts, and the network of caretaker customers who now have free time to do other things for the people they're taking care of. And the company's success itself, by going to its third year here, an ultimate achievement for John and Tom Decker, the father and son team who brought this product to life. So, how different is this from the painting? I'm going to use some examples to talk through some thoughts on this. And I'm going to do this by taking a stab at breaking art into two categories. Some fine art is tuned to the emotions of the artist. Really, all of it is. But in this case, art is a freedom for the artist. Create. Don't care what others think. Connect with the artist. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. Warhol was fearless. His confidence helped attract his audience, and the audience loved his art, partly because they loved him and related to his freedom to find art in his own way. Now, in contrast, it's the second type of art that directly targets an emotional response from a specific audience. These artists inherently do care about others. They create for others, sometimes out of a desire to change or influence the world around them. They want the audience to connect to the object. This is Ai Weiwei. His quote here, "Art should live in the heart of the people." He had ambition to influence the people in his life, remind them of who they are, and set sparks to ignite change for the better. Now, I picked these examples partly because they're fantastic artists, but also because their media was everyday things. They repurposed and retold the story, and they're appreciators of things. It's this type of art that is intended to connect to others, that has ingrained itself into our homes, our lives, and our world in a way that many people don't recognize. Carl Sundberg and Montgomery-Farrar did recognize this, though. They manifested the power of art in everyday things when they started their company in 1934, which I'm beyond proud to be a part of today. The premise: industry is art. Humans crave beautiful things. It's in their nature. They crave ergonomic things, things that work flawlessly, things that have a purpose. They were pioneers to a new profession, industrial design. And Carl and Monty created things that have influenced American culture. Things that have probably played a role in your lives at one point in time or another, from trains to appliances, everything in between. And they weren't alone. The artists of this era formalized a tone that industrial art is art too. And today, the art of everyday things is now commonplace. But taking it back for a second, really, everyday things have always been infused with art. The spoon is perhaps one of the most simple and functional objects in the history of humans. Beyond the fact that it embodies food, sustenance, and health, it's also physically connected with our hand, and it has a place at our tables, which are a very intimate space. But ancient spoons and modern spoons alike, they always have decorative elements and ergonomic priorities. It's a hugely influential object, a simple form of art that connects with us every day. Consider the emotional impact of Obi's spoon, as it enabled independence for a user who might never have been able to experience the connection of eating with a simple object. Now, the spoon is just one example of thousands and thousands of things that bring a little art into our lives every day. We should wake up to this. because it feels good to know you're surrounded by beautiful things. Our tools are so often taken for granted, but really they're fantastic. The good ones are, at least. And they represent the human experience in more ways than we give credit for. Our tools have built our homes, our cities, our food, and our lives. And all of us connect to tools, at least some of them. This is my framing hammer. For me, it represents carpenter's work ethic. It reminds me of my father, and it carries with it a small piece of the tip of my finger, which really hurt. And it looks damn cool. Very cool object in my mind. And this is the Parker family tent. Wild, free, fun, always brings a smile to my kid's face. I connect with these things. I feel good when I use them because they're art. They're beautiful, emotional things. So I invite you to look around, see what art is around you now. What objects spark joy and memories for you? What things connect to you? Don't be shy about giving a spoon a chance to have its moment. I think this moment is deserved because the world is heavy right now. It is. It feels tough to be human at times. Global warming, pollution, global pandemic, there's a lot weighing us down. But I'll tell you though, we've come a long way on this planet out of our desire to create art. And we've created so much art. It's everywhere. We've contributed to Earth's beauty. Our art is a part of this world. It's part of nature. Our art has made this world a better place. And I think sometimes that's worth a reminder. Now, not all objects are art. Not all art is good art. Taking it back to our friend here, there are a lot of bad spoons out there. Have you ever set a spoon on the edge of your plate and had it fall off on the floor on your way to the table? I certainly have. I have a whole drawer full of them, and they're terrible. They just feel wrong in your hand. They're not art. And then there's this guy, the plastic spoon. Poster child of the anti-single-use plastic movement. A lot of emotion with this object these days, but the wrong type. Now, intended connection to its audience is convenience, which is a powerful attribute, I will tell you. We know that here. But if you see this image and relate to a need to make a change, this image of plastic pollution, this image that's always flashed on the back end of any nature movie, then this object, this spoon, is anti-art. Now, if we make a small change, we can completely change the emotions that this object conveys. On the surface, a material is a nuanced detail, but here it completely flips the connection. The emotional impacts of protecting Earth, protecting nature, turns a spoon that's designed to perform this simple task of eating into a small and simple piece of art. It's designed with the right details to connect to the user. So getting the details right is key. It's the key difference between art and a plain old spoon. Now that example was pretty simple. The truth is that many of the objects in our lives are much more complicated. And I've told you that humans themselves are also extremely complicated. Connecting to them is tough. These things here all took diligence and a hardworking designer to create. The good ones, though, stand the test of time. They look just as relevant as their contemporary counterparts, and they set new standards for style and grace and human connection. It's an interesting exercise to try and think of those objects for yourself. Now, for me, it amazes me that someone was able to make an object evoke feelings and memories, not just visual satisfaction. Having gone along for the ride on many creations myself here at Sundberg-Ferar, I know how hard it is. But I still feel the shifter in my hand on my Civic Si. I see my bike and I think about the freedom of being your own engine, riding on the subtle shock absorption of carbon fiber. And this image of the Sandia Peak tram in New Mexico, it always reminds me of the good company at my side holding simple, elegant handrails inside with views of the mountains beyond. So it's not easy to do that though. Everyday art is not easy. You can't apply a step-by-step method and output art. I think that's a misconception. Design thinking doesn't lead to art. It's not something that you're born with. It's earned, just like a trade skill. You have to have experts, people who've been down the road before. And it takes people who let art soak into their lives. People that share a curiosity for beauty and have a desire to create beautiful things. People who appreciate that art is human's nature and embrace the fact that we've got to get it right. We need to continue to help contribute to the beautiful world around us. These are just a handful of the incredible artists here at Sundberg-Ferar, Josiah, Dan, and yours truly, Jivak. Super proud to work alongside all of them and all of my team here and be a part of the art that they create. Now, beyond that, how do they do it? How does an artist create? I'm going to plead the fifth again here, and I'm going to let them take the reins. Take a second to read through these here. I love these. By the way, if you didn't think Joan Moreau was cool before, I hope you do now, because I love that quote. Now, one last element of creating meaningful things, diverse perspective. We're firm believers of this here at Sundberg-Ferar. It's a top-level principle. Cross-pollinate disciplines. Each person's career trains them to focus on different things. And these perspectives are unique and valuable points of inspiration. They all need to be part of the conversation and part of the process. So here at SF, we cultivate a wide range of talent. We understand that each of our disciplines is more powerful as they work together. My advice, collect diverse voices from experienced people. You'll be rewarded with an incredible foundation to design from. The next level of that, cross-pollinate categories, diverse perspectives from categories. There's a shared goal in the business world, growth and profits. It's the truth of it. It's what makes the world go around here. And there's always an opportunity to learn from others' success. Everybody solves a problem a little differently. Different industries have different tools, different materials, different processes that they use to create. Don't get stuck in a box of doing things the same way they've been done for years. You have to strive for differentiation. Whoever's working on your project, build teams who are design dense, experienced in as many industries as possible. At SF, we really pride ourselves on having one of the most diverse portfolios in the industry. We have experience in categories all across the board. And we can achieve success for our clients by building bridges here between mobility and electronics, housewares and medical products. And all those come together to help create a vision like OB. Cross-pollinating categories leads to new doors and exciting innovation and high prospects for success. So, bringing it home here, this is the definition of successful things. Meeting the right needs, functional, emotional, and commercial specs. Get them right, study the users, translate them. Execute with insights from the right people. Experienced designers from diverse perspectives. And connect a thing to its user through art. This is good design. So, whoever you use and however you do it, invest in good design. It's an absolutely crucial element of your business. Spend the time and energy to get these details right so that you've connected to the user, so that you've created art and not just a plain old spoon. You'll be rewarded with strong business and the feeling that you help contribute to the beauty of this world. Finally, in case you need a last boost for your day, here's some other good nuggets. Thanks for your time. Look forward to seeing sparks fly from each of you as you tackle your next endeavors. And if you need help, we'd be proud to be part of your journey here at Sundberg-Ferar.
Awesome.
That's what we got.
Awesome, Mr. Gray. That's really great. Means it's creativity takes courage. It's an amazing thing from Henry. But I think another element that you mentioned from Andy Warhol was the last part of it. And while they are deciding whether your art is good or bad, keep on doing your next work of art. It just brings it together. I love the narrative, the arc of how we start, how we have our mental models built up by nature, by what we see, and then how we as a studio eventually blend and live it out. Absolutely great. I know we're going near the top of the clock, but let's try to answer one or two questions if you're okay with that.
Yeah, go easy on me.
We have a question from John. What is the most common design question that clients should be asking but don't? And that's an interesting question, especially for the world of a design studio as such, right? Since we are an independent design studio, a consultancy, and that's just a pretty interesting question. So I just want to hear your thoughts about it or around it.
Yeah. I'm trying to articulate what that question might be, but I can kind of give an air of how I feel about it, which is to put the value in the design itself. We often are met with a design challenge where the first thing clients do is they look around at the landscape of products around them and they say, this guy's premium, this guy's entry level, we want to be right in the middle, our product needs to be $12.53. And when we go through the process of understanding users, we can reveal new things and we can ideate new things that fundamentally change the game. And those things might cost money, but that is not a roadblock. In fact, that is the risk that you have to be prepared to take. Coming into an equation and understanding that if you found a nugget that really does connect to somebody better, price becomes much less important. And really getting that to market becomes much more important. Don't get stuck in the loop of positioning yourself in the context of others. Figure out how you really can differentiate and go for it. Invest in it because you've done the research, you've studied the users, you get it, and you got to take the plunge. So, I mean, I think we got a lot of clients that do that. We also got a lot of clients that, you know, keep that one in their back pocket and gosh, you wish they could bring it out in the world and make the world a better place with it. So
that really makes sense. In a way, means I think as you're explaining the narrative of design with the example of a hammer or a spoon that eventually we designed for OB or likes like that. I think the question also would be like sometimes making a complicated product or systems becomes pretty easy because there's so many variables that would have already gone wrong, and we get to look at that at hindsight and rearrange it and recalibrate it and present it. But I think elements like a spoon, already so much has been simplified, and then still going with the challenge of making it still more innovative, more useful, more, I would say, seamlessly fit into what you're doing. I think those are the questions sometimes might not get enough respect of, like the challenge of making it more and more simple in the way the lives are getting more and more complex. And therein, it's a challenge. It's fun. We all like to do that. And that will be maybe one of or more of them like that as such too. Other elements that you're mentioning about, I think, would be the connection to you, right? Means as you explained, I'm not trying to answer the question. I'm just trying to discuss about this arc you are saying. And what you said is exactly true. We exist here finally to find some benefit or find some pride or meaning or whatever those elements are for everybody to go and enjoy their life with their family, with nature, with their pets. And then that becomes the onus of the designers too. It's not just a functional element. It has to be completely feasible and completely, I would say, understand the rigors of any factory. But eventually, if it can still giving that, go beyond, and as you said, Gray, add some joy in your life. Try to get those moments of being happy. And those are everlasting elements that everybody, no matter what, will be striving for and craving for. And we just try to make sure we understand that, we identify that, we isolate that, and then bring them into meaningful kind of an elements too. Just a lasting kind of an element or lasting question, I would say, in this last 4 or 5 kind of an COVID months as such, since we have a little bit more time to contemplate within the amount of work and family and virtual schooling now going on, anything that you found about yourself, Gray, that you said like, this is completely different, that I'm just finding it out. Anything that, any aha moments occurred to you?
Well, it's probably the obvious one that a lot of businesses are facing now, which is that working from home works better than I think most people thought. For a design firm like us, we've had to try to figure out ways to fill some gaps about collaboration and making that work okay. But I mean, I also think that there is a really nice acceptance of everybody's personal lives and the challenges that's happening here. I love the fact that we're on Zoom calls all the time, and my little girl walks in the window, and you know what? So does everybody else's on the call. So it's like, yeah, we're here. It's like an acceptance of really the true personal world that we're all in. And I think that's kind of a nice touching thing that it's just good to relate to people that way. So, and all of us are facing those challenges, right? So we all get it, and it's tough for everybody. But in some ways, it's nice knowing there's others going through the same thing.
And I completely second that. Means I, of all the people, now I'm finding myself also pretty more and more comfortable in making, I would say, business connections or explainings or presentations as such. Earlier, we used to all rely on those connections, and this is just being tested. And yeah, we still as a studio work in the hybrid mode. We need to work on something. We have a full-fledged prototyping shop. We still can do that on site, but we are also encouraged to do what we can do remotely too. So that's pretty interesting. And just trying to wrap this up on time as such.
Yeah.
I think what you said was really good, Gray, about how we are adapting. Means I think I will be the first one to raise my hand and saying this is my 5th virtual design conversation in a sports jacket, but in pajamas. It's
nice.
It's comfortable. It is as it is. I think everybody is doing that, or why be doing that, but it works. At least we are. And actually, if you see the buys on Amazon, it's more of the shirts and blouse and shirts rather than the, I was going to say undergarments, the lower garments, I would say. So that's what it is happening. So once again, Gray, thank you for that amazing, I would say, narrative of how the design, the art and the engineering blends together or interfaces together as such. So once again, everybody who are still, it's a pretty lots of participants still on the call. Thank you for your time. It's great to have you and your inputs. Thanks for sending some of the questions earlier when you registered. And as we always seek out, send us your feedback. Let us know what different topics you want to hear or different domains you want to hear from. We will reach out. Fortunately, we have pretty decent kind of a network of clients and partners. So we will try to make sure we can try to get them for our next show as such. If you have any other questions, if you want to reach out to talk about any challenges you are facing in your design, innovation, research, service design world, we will be happy to answer that. Until that time, stay tuned. Next week actually is the Detroit Design Month. Sundberg-Ferar is presenting their annual design conference, I would say. If you enjoyed this half day, you will definitely enjoy the entire day. And there are more experiential elements happening at the day. We have designer cocktails, live demonstrations, live demonstration during a cooking chef-led celebrity chef class. So keep dialed in. You will get an email from us. Don't worry about that. But see you and enjoy the rest of the day ahead. And we will see you in this virtual world. Hopefully.
Yeah. Thanks to all your hard work too, Jivak. I know this is you got a lot of endurance to do this, and
I'm only so good at very little and small number of things. One of them, but it's all a team together. It's what we do. Means we have the way we have to work with what's happening. It's just fun. Means of all the things in the world, we are glad, I can say that for you, me and David, that we are with a design studio where right now people are suffering. There are challenges. There are so many kind of an aggravation and helplessness in the air. And we get a chance to solve them. And we have to go and explore those opportunities. But we can really, at the end, and along with Gray, David, and myself, have a chance to make people's lives little bit better, little bit beautiful. Smaller incremental steps, no problem, but that's where we are, and that's, I think, one of the greatest job in the world. Anyway, over and out, adios, and enjoy your evening. Thank you, Gray. Thank you, Lanea, again for all your help, and we will make sure we will do the next one even more beautiful.